Podcast for you today. We have an epic guest joining us, Heather Smith Outdoors. She has done some of the most unbelievable things that you could possibly imagine doing. And we're going to get into the whole story of her life and what she's doing and where she's going and all the cool things that are going on in her life. And I'm so happy that she's going to join us today. But before we get going, let's touch on a few things. I want to thank Deckhand Sports for always supporting our Friday shows. Thank you, Dave, and the guys over at Deckhand Sports. We'll show you a really cool little video of some of their products here once we get going a little bit. And then the other thing is, don't forget the Pacific Coast Sport Fishing Festival at the Orange County Fairgrounds, the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th of March. Kelly Girl and I will be there with our full entourage. We'll have a big 20-foot booth. We'll be signing autographs and kissing babies and doing all the great things your saltwater guide does. Plus, we'll be doing seminars at the show also. We'll be bringing our guides up, Justin, Pablo, and Sonny, and they'll be answering your questions, and they'll all be available in our booth. We'll be hanging out every day in the booth. So make sure you stop by the Pacific Coast Sport Fishing Show at the Orange County Fairgrounds, March 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. And we'll have lots of stuff to show you for the next couple weeks coming up to the show. And I want to let everybody know Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday next week, I will be at Lopez Mateos fishing with Mark Rayer like I do 4 or 5 times a year. So our shows will be at night. They'll be back at night at 6 o'clock, and then we'll be back online Thursday and Friday at our 12 o'clock time slot. But I just want everybody to know I'll be on location in Lopez Mateos fishing snook and halibut and all that cool stuff in the mangroves and making lots of cool videos for everybody to see. So be ready for that next week, 6 o'clock time, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So don't log in at noon. You won't see us. So, hey, without any further ado, because we have so much to talk about with Heather, we're not going to be able to squeeze it all in the hour. So let's get you on here and let's get this thing going. Heather, welcome to the show.
Ooh, thanks for having me, Dave.
Hey, girl, it's good to see you. Thank you so much. I know you're super busy, so putting a little bit of time in for me, I appreciate it a lot. So thank you very, very much. And you've done so many unbelievable things, and you're super young, so you got a lot of more unbelievable things coming down the pipe, I'm sure. But how did you get into doing all this crazy outdoor stuff? Who got you involved in fishing and hunting and all that stuff when you were a little girl? Because you just didn't
Yeah.
wake up one day and say, I'm going to go do this.
No, yeah, you didn't wake up one day and decide I'm going to be insane, right? And take it to a whole different level. So, my dad was actually a captain. My dad was a merchant master mariner. And so ever since, I mean, I grew up, my dad was already he was going all around the world, and he was a different kind of sailor. My dad was a different kind of captain. He did not believe in, he didn't trust electronics. So he did what they called spherical trigonometry. So, which is celestial navigation. So before every voyage that he would go on, he would map his entire quest, everything out by the stars. And he would sit there with and just do all these calculations for days and days at a time. And then he would point the stars, and he would just, it was a different way of being brought up and taught to really respect the sea and respect the earth itself. So I think that kind of mindset went into my mind as I was young. And then, I lost him in 2006. And then in 2018, I lost the rest of my family except for my kids. And I had lived down in Kima at that time. And, I'd offshore fished and done other things throughout my life, been fishing. But in 2018, when the last of the family died, it was my mother in November. I moved up to Sam Rayburn, which is one of the top bass fishing lakes in the country, and she wanted her ashes spread on Rayburn. So I picked up a fishing rod and I went out there every day to go visit my mom, and eventually it became more about fishing and less about visiting my mom. And some of the bass pros here and some of the, Hall of Famers and legends, Bob Seeley, 2-time Hall of Fame bass fisherman, and Randy Dearman, the guy that brought braided line to the fishing industry. They're all here, and they'd see me go out every day, go to the gym, and they're like, "All right, kiddo, if you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it the right way." And they kind of put me under their wing and put me through some bass boot camp, and then before you know it, I was doing tournaments.
Wow. But let's back up a minute, though. What kind of a captain was your father? Was he a fishing boat captain, merchant
No,
mariner?
he was actually a tugboat captain. So he
Tugboat
was
captain.
Master merchant mariner. So he went all over. Now he did fish, obviously, and he rode a Harley. Nobody knows this, but my maiden name, actually, my last name was Mo, Meaux. So my initials, he didn't care what I was called as long as it was HDM for Harley Davidson motorcycles, which is other than name Mo. But anyway, he was a tugboat captain, but he fished, and so he fished emphatically. As a matter of fact, he slayed mahi all the time. So, but that's the answer to your question.
Okay, so was he an open ocean tugboat captain or inshore? I mean, I'm interested in what he did because something that's what got
Okay.
you to where you are. Just like my dad. My dad was a sport boat captain my whole life. That's why I'm a fisherman.
Yeah. So no, my father was offshore. Well, toward the end, he'd been with them for over 30 years. He was with Auto Candies, and so went from doing either crew changes, but there's a lot of times he would go over to Africa. Whenever they had the new vessels that came out with the joysticks, where they do the side to side, front to front, like the very first ones, he was the first captain that they sent over to Rotterdam to do training on it. This was back in the day, like in '02, So we're talking years and years ago. Then, and it was really funny. But anyway, so he would go overseas and be gone for long periods of time. He was over in, I think it was like he brought back some Russian. He traded some American jeans for some Russian soldiers, like fur little helmet that was on they wore, or whatever little hat, So he went all over. I mean, sometimes he would work inside of the Gulf, but my dad usually took the longer changes when I was younger.
Okay, so that kind of now I understand because that celestial navigation is a big, big deal. And
Yeah.
that's a lost art. People don't do that anymore. They grab their phone, they look at their GPS on their phone, or they have navionics. And most people today are, if their phone or their GPS doesn't work on the boat, they're kind of done. They're not going to get home. They're just not going to make it. So that's kind of a unique thing. And I wanted to learn a little bit more about your dad. So thank you very much for that. And then, so you just kind of started out going fishing with your dad, little streams and stuff, or did you start out fishing in the ocean? What part of that fishing
No,
thing did
actually,
you?
my very
Yeah.
first fish I ever caught was a sheephead, and so it was a sheep's head, and it was in Homa. And I can tell you to tell you exactly how old I was. It was the day I lost my first tooth, right? So I was probably about 5 or 6, because I wanted to go. We went out with my aunt, my uncle. My uncle was a guide out in Homa, and they had a fish camp. And I had asked if I could go swimming, and they told me no. And I got a big sheephead on the line, and they thought I was trying to jump in. My aunt was yelling at me. I said he couldn't get in the water, and I was like, "It's a fish!" It was pulling me, and so I was fighting it. And then I went over, and my tooth was so loose that I actually bit into a bologna sandwich, and it took my bottom tooth fell out. So I'll never forget that specific day, and exactly, that tells me how old I was.
Yeah, and that's some of the best things about fishing, gang. Like I talk about all the time on this show. Heather, when she was a child, she remembers the day exactly, just like I remember the day when I first went fishing with my dad when I was 3 years old. And I remember my mom putting my shoes on as I'm sitting on the counter, and I didn't know fishing. I didn't know nothing. I just knew I was going to get to hang out with my dad. Heather, that's so good to understand what Heather's talking about, because the most important thing for us to do is pass this off to our children. It is so important to get the outdoors thing because, Heather, as you and I are the most hated people in the world because we have a suntan and we go outside and we smile. They can't wrap their head around it. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think my favorite thing I get all the time is it must be nice, and I'm thinking it must be, you don't even know the work that it takes to do what we do. So I mean, and it is nice to be able to work into something I'm doing, but nobody realizes how much you had to sacrifice to get to where we are, and to what we're doing. So
yeah,
but go ahead. I'm sorry.
we're very blessed that our fathers brought us into this world and got to see the outdoors and experience that. And I talked to you a little bit before the show. I mean, you're going to talk about your children and all that stuff, but there's nothing more important than turning children on to the outdoors, because for some reason right now, they do not want our children going outside. They do not want them going outside and seeing what's going on and enjoying life. And hunting and fishing are two of the number one things they don't want us doing anymore, which doesn't make sense. I don't know where they think their food comes from.
It's crazy because dear, were you at ICAST this last year?
No, I was not. I had a
Okay.
big event out here with the War Heroes on Water, but I'll be
Oh,
at
that's
ICAST
amazing.
this year, and so will Elliot.
Oh, cool. I'll see you guys there. There is actually 46% of the anglers that are now fishing are women. I mean, we've had a 300% increase in women alone since the pandemic. And then we've had, I think there's 17 million people right now that are female anglers, in the sport itself. So there's a huge vast number of women. And, and I say that because we're usually the ones that have to focus on the kid. For the most part, your men are your breadwinners, right? Although we're seeing a huge change, obviously, in trending, but women's focus for the most part is always the kids, right? And getting everything in order. So it's important, I think, for all of us to include our children out there and get out there as much as we can. I've made tremendous changes in my schedule and even what I've been doing alone recently, because this year now Ashley Jones from Swamp People, she and I partnered together, and we're bringing our kids with us everywhere. I mean, we leave next week, we're doing Nutria hunts and helicopter hog hunts and offshore, and the littles are there. I mean, even when I trained for Naked and Afraid, for every time I went, my littles have went and trained with me. They were up in Washington State. We had a cougar stalking my youngest one, when I was training for Naked and Afraid the first time.
Oh my gosh! Well, I want to get way into Naked and Afraid. How old are the girls now?
They are 13 and 11. I call them the littles.
Yeah, you do. I see that all the time on your social
Yeah.
media.
Yeah.
But how did you get to think that I want to go out into the jungle and be naked and let all these bugs bite me? I just can't for me, I could probably do every part of it, but the bug thing, that would just do it for me. I'd be done. I tap out.
I'm not gonna lie, that's like truly the worst part. And now having gone to the jungle and castaways, and then also doing South Africa, which was a very arid environment. When I was in South Africa, my foot, the ground was 138 degrees, so it actually fried the bottom of my foot. Like it literally, I had to cauterize my own wound. It was so bad that they didn't want it to be shown on television because it said that it would gross the audience out. But it was very, very bad. And from going from extreme temperatures of heat, like I will take any day burning my foot off rather than the excruciating pain I went through with the bugs for 21 days. The place that we did the show Castaways, it was known for probably having one of the worst bug infestations in the entire world, and these bugs were relentless. It was a nightmare. And in answering your question, when I first started doing this, another show had reached out to me to see if I wanted to come on and do a survival show. And when I decided to sign up for it, or I went to go train for it, and so I did. I got trained up in Washington. I brought the littles, like I said, and I did survival, and I got trained in advanced survival. And while I was up there training, someone posted up, "You should do Naked and Afraid." And I just smiled and I said, "Okay, Kate, I should." And bugs actually wasn't even on my thought process because they weren't anywhere I was at when I was training, right? So, and then from there, I went to go train. I could reach out to a friend, in a few days, within days, actually, I'd heard from Naked and Afraid, and they really sped me through the process, and I was going. And I went down to Florida to go train, to do more training, right? So I could have diversity. And then I trained down there with Aaron Phillips, who'd already been on the show. And I was just getting eaten alive by bugs. I was like, "You think it's really going to be this bad?" And with the bugs, he looked at me and he goes, "This ain't nothing, princess. Like it's going to be horrible." And, the first one, like I said, Africa it wasn't the bugs, it was the temperatures, the extreme temperatures. But Castaways definitely brought it to a whole new level.
That had to be the show that Kelly and my wife and I were watching, because we just saw the bites, the bug welts, and I was just like, how in the hell is she handling that? It's just crazy. That just looks so gnarly to me. It's just,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how you did that, gang. If you want to check something crazy out, go watch Heather on that Castaways, Naked and Afraid. It was the most incredible thing. It was just you can't wrap your head around it till you watch it, and now you're listening to her tell the story. So it's real. What she went through is absolutely the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. I was just watching that show, and you think when they first put this show out, what, 15 years ago or something, you think, oh my God, there's going to be naked people. How exciting. This is going to be cool. Then you watch what you guys are going through. I don't know how you made it. I don't know how you did that. You have to be one of the most strongest human beings on the planet Earth because of the shit. Excuse me. The stuff you went through was absolutely incredible. And I didn't mean to say that word, gang. So
No,
all
no,
the
you're fine. Actually, my producer even said that to me one day. My producer told me that I'm probably one of the strongest people that they've ever had on the show mentally. That I was a very strong woman. But it was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. I try to keep a sense of humor about me. Like I'm always cracking jokes. There's definitely some personality, issues and some tensions with some personalities. And, some people are out there because they're an outdoorsman. Some people are out there because they want to be on a TV show, in my opinion. So I wanted to be out there because I just wanted to prove that I could I could do it, that I was really trying to show. I mean, I think you said I'm younger earlier. I'm actually, I'm in my 40s. And so um I I know that recently the country's went through a lot of issues, and I mean we've had so many different things that no one ever imagined would happen, in the last 5 years. And that being said, a lot of people were losing their careers, their businesses, loved ones. I mean, so many things were happening, and the real catalyst for me to do it was to show that we can overcome anything, even when it feels like you're against all odds and there's you're not going to win, and it's brutal and you just want to give up. If you just honestly stay determined and consistent, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and you will accomplish it.
that that is very strong words, and that's something to think about, gang, because when you watch what Heather was doing, it blows my to be thrown into that situation and then to be with someone that you don't even know and then to be hungry and bit up and just irritable. I don't know. Me, get me hungry. I'm not a good person to be around. I can't even imagine what it must have been like listening to some booger eater dude trying to tell you what to do while you already had a plan. So throwing that other person in on it had to be really gnarly, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was one of those where I was like, "Oh god," so but I mean, we got through it. And then, I met Belant out there. Belant's actually going to be doing the helicopter hunt with me. That's the one great thing about Castaways. He's an amazing survivalist. He's an amazing human being. He's probably one of the funniest people on the planet. And watching his interaction with Andrew and him just like completely roasting Andrew, I think that was like the highlights of my day every day, because it was absolutely valid. And everybody's like, oh, he's not I mean, he's joking. I was like, he wasn't joking. So I was in tears just laughing so hard. And it was absolutely like the highlight of my day. And I think that's one of those things that can be going out there. But the bugs were heinous. It was just absolutely awful. And even on entry, they had us swimming through saltwater crocodiles. Like, you get off the boat and you got to swim through saltwater crocs. Like, you think you're afraid of a shark, but the thing is, a shark doesn't always think you're food. A saltwater croc always thinks you are food. So I was like, oh great, like murder, death, kill, like right in insertion again.
I just, yeah, once again, just watching all the highlights that Elliot's throwing up here on the screen, I just go, I don't know how you guys did that and how you maybe it would be easier if you're by yourself, but then you throw the other people in on it and just the things that would come out of their mouths and the things they would say and just watching. I know that there's a lot of editing, but just watching the facial expressions and everything that was going on. And all I could think about while I was watching was, I know how much fun am to be around when I'm hungry. And I just go, man, that had to be such a challenge to deal with the other human beings that were there.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big thing for me. I live in a town of 223. I like to tell everybody that I was coastal distancing before social distancing was cool. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm not one that likes big crowds. I'm not one that wants to, I've never been worried about being the cool girl. You know what I mean? I just want to be me. I want to have my own life. I'm really content with me and my kids doing my own thing. I don't care, you know, the best way to say it without sounding horrible is pigeons flock together. You know what I mean? I've never been one of those people. I just want to do my own thing, and just be cool and peaceful inside. And so that was a big barrier. I can tell you, I looked up at one point and we called it the postcard beach. And I started dying laughing because I looked back and my jaw hit the ground and it was just so beautiful. I mean, breathtakingly beautiful. Probably one of the most beautiful views I've ever seen in my life. And it was like, I remember I closed my eyes and I looked over, I saw the camera, and like tears came in my eyes because I'm like, ever since I was a little girl, I pictured myself, on TV out here in one of these cool places. And, you grew up watching National Geographic or Discovery or things like that.
Oh
And
yeah.
then you look over and then I see what I call my little trash panda group. And it was like our little group of six with like, trash and litter and everything all over us. And I just bust out laughing because you've had this dream your entire life. And then you look over and you see this like Mad Max gang of tribe you're with. And you're like, I never thought it would happen this way. You know?
This isn't what the dream really looked like when you closed your eyes, but there you are. It's
Yeah.
all about reality. Hey, real quick, I want to show everybody this video I got from Deckhand Sports. And then as soon as we're done with that, we're going to get into your fishing career and what you've been doing fishing wise, and all the other cool things you have on the board. So can we cue that up there, Elliot? Hey, gang, if you go with that QR code we're throwing up on the screen right now, you can go over there and check out all the products that they have at Deckhand Sports. But that kill bag is just incredible. The way they put the ribs in the bottom of it, Heather, so it lifts the fish up out of that slimy, bacteria-infested water and gets them up high and dry out of that water, and it helps hold the bag open. It's just an incredible design. I've been in the sport fishing industry for a living for 49 years. I've never seen a bag like this. It's an incredible bag, incredible product, leak proof. So when you have like I was talking to my good friend Cliff the other day, we were talking about throwing our fish in the back of our car and driving around, and most bags leak. This bag leak proof, does not leak. So you don't have that smell in your car if the water starts to leak out. It's an incredible product. Every part of it, they've done everything that you can think of to make this the best kill bag out there. So I'm sure
I'll have to take a look at that.
you'll be seeing a lot of them, and I'll get you their number. You can call Dave and talk to him about it, because you definitely need to have some of those. It works for game too. If you've got fish, I mean, animals, deer, or anything, you got to keep them cold. This stuff will work perfect in the back of your car.
Oh, wow.
It's an incredible bag with a whole bunch of different spots to tie it down, which is the biggest problem. If you're like me and you're on a different boat every day, every boat has a different tie down, and this
Yeah.
bag covers it all. It's a pretty bitchin' bag. They did everything. They thought about every aspect of it, and then the leak proof part. And they have every size imaginable. You can put a 300-pound bluefin tuna in it, or you can put those little mahis in it. Whatever, they hold everything.
Nice.
So now you're getting into this, going fishing. We're backing up. We're gonna get back behind, and you started doing this bass fishing, like you were telling me. You went to like bass boot camp with some of the best bass fishermen in the world, and they were like, "Here, little girl, this is how you're gonna do it if you're gonna do it right." Why don't we talk about you getting into this Bass Pro fishing thing? Because that's a big click. That's tough to get into.
Yeah, yeah. I think the reason that they helped me is because I didn't want to, like, I wasn't asking. You know what I mean? Like they knew my mom. My mom had owned a boat and jet ski rental place up here, and we also owned H&R Block. So when I moved up, I kind of took in my mom's spot. The littles were in school. We had a manager, that had been running the place for my mom for 20 years. So like, I was just here and I was grieving, right? So when I say boot camp, it's not something they offer to anybody. They were just like, we would talk about what we're going to throw, this, that, and the other. And I would go out there and I'd be like, I threw this and I went here and this is what I did. And then they decided I went through this, what I call bass boot camp. Charlie King and some other guys, they all put me out there and they told me I wasn't allowed to fish with anybody else but them, because they weren't going to spend 3 days unlearning me of me learning the wrong way, So I literally trained with these guys. I remember Charlie King called me one time at 11:15 at night. He was like, "If we're at Anatoac, what are you going to throw? How are you going to throw it? Why are you going to throw it?" And I was like, "Oh my God, wacky worm in the cypress trees, blah, blah, blah." And then he's like, "Okay." And I was like, "All right, can I go to bed now, please?" You know what I mean? Like, I just want to go back to bed. So anyway, that went on. And then we fished a V&M tournament together. Charlie and I did. After that, we did very well in that tournament. And from there, Florida Fisherman Magazine, picked me up, caught me. They noticed me from me posting on social media. So anybody that tells you guys not to post on social media, don't listen. You never post enough. Keep posting on social media. Only you can sell your brand, or you can make it what it was. And at the time, I didn't even know what I was doing. I just, as far as branding, I just knew I was posting pictures, of me fishing and enjoying myself. And then from there, I just, was going red fishing, and then I would go offshore. I went to Cuba. It's always been something I'd wanted to do. So I went to Cuba and caught my marlin out of Hemingway Marina. Probably one of my favorite fishing trips ever. And then the producer for the Elite Fishing League on Discovery reached out to me, Pat Malone, asked me if I wanted to be an analyst on the Elite Fishing League. I accepted that, did that. The Hunt Channel reached out to me, asked me if I wanted to be have my own show, Heather Smith Outdoors. That started rolling. Then I was training. Meanwhile, I'm fishing tournaments still, and fishing offshore. Then I started training to go on the survival program. Switched over, decided to do Naked and Afraid, left that year. It was 2021 when I started filming for Naked and Afraid. And then 2022 came back, fished some bass tournaments, fished the Sport Fishing Championship on CBS, and then fished some tournaments in St. Croix with the guests that you've already had on here, with Bobby and Amy.
Right.
And then in 2023, went over, started fishing Big Rock, Kelly Wagner. I also left to go do Castaways and had to do some training for that stuff too. And then came back, did some more training with the kids, spending more time. I fished the Bass Tournament Series that year. And then switched over to came back, and then at the end of the year, last year, I fished tournaments up in Maryland, because now I'm on the Hogfin Pro team. So I'll go up and fish on the East Coast with the Hogfin team.
Oh, sweet. So as far as fishing goes, are you like me? Anywhere there's water, it doesn't matter, salt, fresh, we just gonna fish because we gotta fish. Like my wife
Yeah.
says all the time, if I could pee a puddle, I would fish in it.
I have my preferences of what I like, right? So if I have my options, my very favorite, but yes, in answer to your question, yes. And so if I'm on freshwater, I feel like my mom, her ashes are here. If I'm on the saltwater, I feel like I'm closer to my dad because he was a captain. And so it feels like either way, I've kind of got a connection there. But no matter what, at some point I have to be on saltwater every year. No matter what I'm doing, and I've got to also have my what I call chicken soup, or my like home food, is freshwater. So my very favorite fishing is definitely offshore fishing. It's just because it's an adrenaline rush and it's such a battle. And then bass would be second. That would be because it's just like my comfort food, freshwater right there. And then third would be inshore saltwater
Okay.
or near
Yeah,
shore.
that peacock bass that Elliot showed in the very beginning, that was a big deal for me when I went down to Florida. I was like, I couldn't even believe that they have these fish in everyone's backyard, right? It's just an incredible fishery, just a beautiful fish.
Yeah.
I was blown away. Talk
Yeah.
about that a little bit.
If you take a look, I don't know if you can see it. There's actually a picture where I don't have my glasses on. I know that's the video. I started crying when I caught that fish. That was a bucket list fish for me. And Pat Ford, that's Pat Ford's house there. He's a very, very, very well-known sports photographer, and he has like 23 fishing world records. But he is that's his backyard, and what is it, Roland Martin, Tommy Martin, or whatever. They film a lot in that lake particularly, and so I wanted a peacock bass, and I had that morning I had went out with Hunter Freeman in the Keys and caught me a black tip shark. I got in the car and I drove to Pat Ford's house that afternoon, and that afternoon I pulled that fish out, and I had not got a peacock bass yet, and I had like literally, there's a picture they put it on the cover. I think it's that one. That's the one. I have tears in my eyes. I just started crying like a little girl, and at one point I'd ask him to stop filming because I was just crying and overcome with it's one of those things like that's one of your fish that you always want, and that was definitely on the bucket
Okay.
list for me. I think it's 6 actually.
That the emotions and everything that go into fishing, gang, it's the reason why we do it, and it's the reason why it's so important to get children into this, because if we don't take care of our children, if we don't get them into this, believe me, the last thing that they're going to teach them at school is that it's okay to go out there and go fishing. But Heather can tell you right now, and she gets emotional talking about it. I get emotional talking about it because fishing is such a phenomenal way to get in touch with your children and get in touch with nature and get in touch with the things that have gone on in our lives. Like my mother, I put her ashes in a gigantic pot of dolphins. So every time I see a dolphin, that's my mom coming by to say hi. You know, my wedding, we got married on a boat in a harbor, and nobody'd ever seen in the harbor. The dolphin showed up in the middle of our wedding inside the harbor. It was just the most incredible thing. And it's just all part of the deal, gang. That's why it's so important to make sure that we pass this on to our children. And I'm so stoked that you're getting to do that now, Heather, and turn your girls on, the littles, on to the life that you have and that you're so passionate about, but also that you learn. So you're teaching a skill to your kids, which is incredible. And it's a great way to be connected to the girls, right?
Oh, it's amazing. And you know what I really like? So, like, whenever I was going through the boot camp, like, they want to mimic you. Children watch every single thing you do. They really do mimic you, even down to when they use their foul language that they shouldn't say, you know? And so I would have my cup of coffee and I would watch my youngest little. She would drag the bar stool outside, and I have like a covered wraparound porch, and she would get the bait caster, and so it was just perfect to practice with pitching and flipping. And she would sit there in that little stool every morning while I drank my coffee, and she would do pitch and flip, and practice pitching and flipping. So because she wanted to be able to do it too, she wanted to get out there with mom and do it, and I thought that was the coolest thing. To this day, even when somebody's doing something wrong, she's like, I'll teach them. So and she wants to show everything. So when we go to like different events, like the kids fish, the kids love to share. They love to talk to the other kids, and that's so important. It's not just fishing. I mean, it's not just fishing. It's everything. Water being fishing is so cathartic, right? It's good for your soul. I did not realize I was, going through a grieving process. I naturally pivoted toward the water to heal you, right? Because that's what it does. But the outdoors does that. So like in the summers, I'll break the kids up to Montana. We'll go up on the top of a mountain in a cabin with no electricity, and nothing. And we have to hike a mile and a half up, and we live in there for a month together, and it's just us, So, and the littles are right there for it. They love it.
That is so incredible. That is
Yeah.
so wonderful. And then you're a hunter also too, right? You love to hunt, right? I see some pictures of you hunting.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Actually, my favorite thing it's funny you should say that because my favorite thing to hunt is actually Nutria, and I like gators too. But I say that's Ashley, my friend Ashley from the Swamp People. That's her thing. But I love Nutria hunting, hog hunting. I like deer, but my favorite method of hunting, we do it in Louisiana. We go on an airboat with shotguns, and we're flying through the swamp, and you're shooting hogs, and you're shooting coyotes, and you're shooting nutria rat. And it feels like you're in a live video game. Like, it's amazing. And so it really is. It's like it's an experience that you have to experience once in your lifetime. Like, so it's really funny. I'm like, nobody Dick Cheney me while we're out here because you're flying through that video right there. I think the one he's posting, I posted that. It had 13.5 million views in 4 hours. Like, so we had prepped it up and we went out there, and I purposely posted that video where it was peppered because they like to take things down if it's got kill shots on it. But you'll see the hog that was laid down, and truly one of the most fun experiences. It's fast. If for people that like to hunt birds, I love to do dove. Dove's very quick. But this is so much faster, like so much faster. I mean, you literally have one shot, boom, hit the hog, rotate quick as you go by, boom, just take the kill shot before it goes off and hides.
Oh, that looks so fun. Yeah. I never went on air. My wife and I, we were working down in Florida 3.5 years ago in Fort Lauderdale, and we did that airboat thing. And it was just so cool just to do. I know that kind of sounds geeky to you because you grew up with it, but for me and my wife, we never saw anything like it. I can't even imagine hunting from the airboat. Just riding around on the airboat was really cool. We did it like 4 times. We were just totally tourist out doing the airboat thing. But to hunt off the airboat, that's got to be one of the most incredible experiences. And then you're talking about going helicopter hunting for hogs in Texas. That's bucket list stuff for me. I see that all the time. And you're going after an animal that's absolutely destroying cattle land and farmland. These animals are very big time invasive species, gang. So you have to understand, you have to wrap your head around it, that we're actually helping nature by kind of culling this animal, for lack of a better word. And it's an important thing to do. So I would love maybe next year, because you were
Yeah,
saying,
yeah, we talked about it. Maybe I would like to get you on board with them. I think you would have a good time. Balant's actually coming with me, so I'm actually really excited about that. So Balant's going to be flying down, and he's going to meet the littles because the littles have heard so much about him. Ashley's going to be with me. Ashley's bringing her kids. But we're also going to have a day at the range where we have like unlimited ammunition and pretty much any kind of gun you can think of. But you are correct. The reason we're doing the Nutria rodeo thing they're very invasive species. Then the Nutrias are getting into the levees, like they're making burrows in there, which is making it weak. And so when the storms come in, now you're compromising, vast areas, and for people, they're also destroying 12,000 acres, I think is what the numbers I got from the last interview that I had, a year. So we're taking care of them, and they taste amazing. So when my bass partner, Rowdy Slaughter, and I were fishing a tournament series last year, and his wife was watching the girls, and when she had first, it was the year before that, when she first met the littles, and she asked the little, she said, so what's your favorite thing to eat? And she was waiting for little to say like chicken nuggets, and little said Nutra. And she goes, rat. And her face about died. And she's like, I'm fresh out of rat. And she's like, oh, we got some.
yeah, that made that young lady stand up. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, how exciting! How cool though. That
Yeah.
is so cool. So this hog hunt you were talking to me about, this kind of goes into what I do every September with the War Heroes. You guys are giving back to the veterans too. You're raising money for the veterans. You were telling me about this before.
Yeah, so Helicopters for Heroes has been around, I think it's 4 years now, and they've already raised like $6.5 million. So it's you come out, you get two helicopter hog hunts, you have a day at the range, and they pick two benefactors every year, right? Or beneficiaries there every year that they're going to give the proceeds to. And this year we've got Heroes for Horses, and then I think it's Boots for Warriors or something. But the Heroes for Horses, they pick like 30 PTSD veterans, and they bring them up in the mountains, and then they give them a wild horse, and they have to take care for that horse, and they're up there for like 60 days, and they go through this whole thing, and the horse becomes their friend, and they live up in basically the mountains of Yellowstone for like a month or two with these horses. And at the end, there was guys that were like Navy SEALs that were even saying that getting the belt buckle you get at that end of that program meant more to them than their trident at the end of buds.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's so cool. I love
Yeah.
I love this giving back and being a part of anything that does good for War Heroes, anything that has to do with War Heroes. So I'm 100% in, and I hope I can participate in this next year. But I had a question came through. I know we're talking about this right now, but me, Southern California boy, living down here in Mexico, and then I got a couple of texts on my phone, personal texts saying, "What's a Nutra? What's a
Oh,
Nutra? We don't know what they are. We have no clue." I'm
and
pretending like I know what the hell I'm talking about, but I don't know what the heck it is.
it's imagine like a capybara. They have capybaras down in South America.
Right.
So it's like a little version of a capybara. It's like if a capybara and a beaver had a baby, and they have orange teeth. Maybe he could pull it up. It's called a Nutria rat, right? So it's a Nutria, Nutria rat, and they're herbivores, so they don't eat any meat. So when you try to eat raccoon, it's like a greasy meat. Nutria is so good, and like I'm telling you, I have a friend of mine. She's super bougie. She sells Louis. Like she has like all the luxury brands. Like I'm talking, this is the Chanel girl. Like she loves it. She even says, Heather, like I do. I cook the best Nutri-Rat. Miss Louisiana goes with me all the time. We go. I got a great story. Me and Miss Louisiana, Tanya Crow, went out there. We shot a mom, brought her up on deck. I just posted the live the other day. It's actually on my page. This particular live. And we've harvested her up. Her stomach was moving. You know, we'd already shot her with a shotgun, but we noticed her stomach was moving. So we cut her open, did an emergency C-section, gave CPR to the babies, and then we cooked the mominator.
Perfect. All right. Now I can see. Thank you, Elliot. I had no idea what this animal was. I know one of my friends, Jeanette, she's on here. She goes, they're a swamp rat. I'm like, okay, well,
Yes.
I want to
Yeah,
see
it's
it.
a swamp rat, but they're herbivores, whereas like, you know, like raccoons, other rats, possums, things like that, you know, you'll see them eating like meat and stuff like that. You're not going to see a nutria eating any kind of meat at all. It's a very, very good meat. And I put it in like a Magnolite roaster, and I put like an entire jar, or not jar, but bottle of red wine vinegar, you know, so, and then I cook it at 225 for about 6 or 7 hours with tons of garlic and some other spices in there. And it's so good that the meat just kind of falls off the spine.
Oh, wow. Sounds
Hmm.
incredible. That
Yeah.
sounds so fun. And so these things are totally screwing up the levees because they burrow inside of them. Now I'm starting to understand what you were talking about. Okay. So
Yeah. It's the Nutri Rodeo. We go and do it. I kind of gotten called down about, because we do the Nutri Toss too. I was told it wasn't a good look, that I shouldn't do it. But I'm like, come on, I'm tenderizing the meat. So we go out and we go out on the boats, and then there's different tournaments. Actually, have you ever fished any of the offshore tournaments? You're a sport fisherman. Have you ever fished like the Mississippi Billfish Classic or the Louisiana Classic?
now we have the largest money jackpot tournament in the world down here, the Bisbee's Marlin
Hmm.
Black and Blue. So fished that
Yeah.
for 20 something years. I've been involved in a lot of tournaments in California, but nothing down there where you're at.
Well, Robbie Carter actually is his dad. Bobby Carter is the guy that started like the Mississippi Billfish Classic, you know, all of those big ones that are known in the Gulf, right? You know, and so anyway, so Robbie, I roped Robbie into going to the Nutri Rodeo with me last year, and I was like, hey, I need you to come in, because me and him, I fish his tournaments. And me and him became really good friends. And so he's like, okay, well, then I had got reserved an airboat for us. Same guy. I always go with Cody from Cajun Hookers. And Cody's amazing captain. And I mean, until it's like the quality, Gordon Ramsay goes out with, you know, and does this on Cody's boat. Like you'll see a lot of well-known chefs going out there, because they go out there and go and get the meat and bring it back and cook it in their restaurants, to be honest with you. um but anyway, so I had to bail on him last minute. I had him and Miss Louisiana last year set up with me, and then all of a sudden I had to leave, and I couldn't tell anybody I was going to film Castaway. So last minute, I was like, you guys take my boat. Y'all have fun. And so they went, and Robbie absolutely fell in love with it. He was like, what in the backwoods is this? And he absolutely fell in love with it, and his original Louisiana roots. So I'll be meeting up with Robbie. He actually came on and took this tournament on. And of all of his things, he's got, you know, the Louisiana Billfish Classic, and he's got like all these other swordfish tournaments. And then now he's got the Louisiana Nutri Rodeo, you know, like added to his repertoire.
Nice.
Yeah.
Then you also have another thing going on with some skateboarders. Did you used to skateboard too? You've done so much stuff. What are you doing with the skateboarder guys?
No, I did own a skateboarding shop in Lafayette for many years, but no, Steve Stedham, who was Powell Peralta and Bones Brigade. He's actually one of the original pioneers of skateboarding. It was him and Tony Hawk, and you can look him up. Steve Stedham, Steadham. Steve and I have been friends for years and years and years. And so he reached out to me recently, and he asked me if I wanted to collab with him on a shoe, because he has his own shoe line and deck lines and thousands of other products. and he said that he knew that I had had my clothing line before, and I have a very unique sense of Heather is the best way I'll describe it. Even my producers say I have Heatherisms. I don't. Nobody else talks. I just have a certain way of doing things. You know, it's definitely a Heather way. So I said I wanted a comfortable shoe. I wanted something that to show that I loved fishing, or whoever wore it that they loved fishing. And but I wanted it more importantly to be something comfortable. You know, I didn't want it to be gimmicky. And so far, since we launched these shoes last Saturday, they've been really big. And the black ones the guys want, the camo the girls want. I mean, obviously we've had some people cross over. You know, it hasn't always been that way, but that I see a trend every time. If I pull it up, I can giggle to myself, because usually the husband will go for the black, the woman will go for the camo.
Well, that looks like a really cool show. I'm checking it all out that Elliot's throwing up there on the screen, and that looks like a beautiful shoe. I think Kelly girl would love the camouflage, but she's watching downstairs right now. So I'm sure as soon as we're done, I'll find out exactly which one she wants, because we're going to get a pair.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you. I
We
love
can
that.
pretty much promise you that. If
Yeah, I
it's got
appreciate the
anything,
support.
if it's got anything to do with giving back and helping out our friends, we're in it 100%. That looks like a really cool shoe. It looks really spectacular. Speaking of that, real quick, Elliot, I just want to touch on this. If you guys show up wearing any of our clothes to the Pacific Coast Sport Fishing Festival, remember, all of my sponsors kick down phenomenal amount of product. We'll have all kinds of free stuff. If you've ever been to a trade show that Kelly and I are at, you come in wearing my shirt, my hat, backpack, sweatshirt, anything that says your Saltwater Guide on it, we're going to just fill your bag up with free stuff. I'm sponsored by some of the biggest manufacturers in the industry, Costa and Okuma and Promar and Deckhand Sports and AFCO, and so many different companies that are going to just be kicking down a lot of swag. So if you show up at the Pacific Coast Sport Fishing Show wearing any of our clothes, and there's the QR code Elliot just threw up on the screen, and those of you driving around, type in the code YSWG, or excuse me, go to Your Saltwater Guide, this store, and you'll be able to find all our products over there. And then Heather, how do they find your shoes? Talk about that, because there's people actually driving in their cars right now that can't see what we're talking about. Tell them how to find these shoes.
Oh, the website is on that. I can't see right now, like because I don't have my glasses. I mean, I just put them on. So if you go on the link that he's putting up there, it's going to be STEDZ. There you go. www.stedmz.us, and then you from there you'll see the products. You'll see Heather Smith Outdoors, and then you can pick them from there. So it's going to be under Steve's website, and so and then it's just got my name on there, you know, for the thing. We wanted to do 6 colors, and I said let's make it easy in the beginning. Let's just start off on 2. I don't want to go wild and crazy right off the bat, so let's keep it. I like it simple. I like everything simple, you know.
Right. It does. You don't want to give people too many options, because they'll just slide out and get nothing. So,
Right, right. I mean, it's confusing, and I'm not like that. I really am like to be to be as complex as I am. I mean, I'm just more aloof because I like things simple. I don't like when things get complicated. You know, I think like the same way my dad. You know, you have all the electronics, but at the end of the day, he always wanted to go back to the celestial nav. When you know you throw you out in the naked and afraid, there's no electronics. You don't even have clothes. I mean, you gotta look up at the stars. You've got to look at the direction of the way the leaves are growing. I mean, even if there's overcast, I mean, you can look at night, you know, even if you can't see the stars on the canopy, you can see which direction, because the leaves are going to grow, you know, because of the sun, you know. So there's a lot of things that you have to look at. So it's the small things that you look at, but I don't like things to be complicated. I just like to look at something, have it easy, and then go on my way.
there you go. That is super cool, that understand how nature all works, especially if you're doing what Heather does. You better have a better understanding of what's going on out there, because you don't have the electronics, you don't have a compass. She's walking around naked out there in the middle of the forest. You better know how to get from point A to point B. Gang, Heather's touched on something right in the beginning of this podcast that I think is really important for any of you that are trying to figure out, how does she get so much traction? How does she have so many views? Because she's consistently putting out phenomenal content. She puts out a phenomenal amount of content on her Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. She's always putting out stuff. That's how you get traction, gang. Those of you that are watching Heather and I and going, how do these two have so much? Well, I'm even more of a booger eater in this world because I put out 3 brand new videos every single day and a brand new picture every day. And I do this live podcast Monday through Fridays. It's all about being consistent. Like Heather said, you're going to go
Mhm.
and look at all the cool stuff she has, and you're just going to be blown away by the content. So if you're going, hey, it must be nice. Well, we worked hard at it, didn't we, Heather?
Yeah, and what people don't realize is because of all the time that we put in, like I know you have, you know what I mean, the time I put in. So I actually have my consulting business. So I do social media management and I also do branding coaching. So if they want, if somebody they want somebody to handle their social media, I have myself and my team. Or if they wanted to figure out how to brand or which direction to go in their brand, because you got to figure out what you stand for. I mean, you can't stand for all of it. Yeah, I do a lot of stuff, but there's one thing that's got to make you unique and special. You know, so and God, for the love of God, please don't be one of those OnlyFans fishermen. You know, just a little hint out there: if you want to get on a television network and you have an OnlyFans, they'll never let you on. So, you know, just stay true to who you are. I'm not saying anything bad. I'm not judging, but you know, let's remember what your knees are for. So, but I think just consistency is something that's important that everybody needs to focus on and know what your brand is and make sure you constantly talk about your brand. You can never say your own brand name enough, ever. You know, always identify who you are, identify where you are, and always wrap it up with who you are. Like make sure that they know your name by the end of that conversation or that end of that content.
Absolutely. So why don't you do that right now? Tell everybody how they can find you on all the different social media platforms, and we'll go with that right now.
All that great jazz. Heather Smith, Heather Smith Outdoors on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Threads. And you can also find me on Discoveries, Naked and Afraid, Season 15, Episode 6, Discoveries, Naked and Afraid, Castaways. I'm also the outdoor editor for Florida Fisherman Magazine. Take a look at them. So, or if not, you can follow this lovely podcast of your saltwater guide. Check out this amazing guy, Dave Hansen, and listen to this interview.
Well, thank you very much, Heather. This has been spectacular, gang. If anybody has a burning question, I have one. But if any of you, we've got about 10 minutes left. I have a question that I want to understand is what was the process like to get on that show the first time? How did you go about it? How big was the casting call? How many people were in line to be on there? Because I was on a game show once, and I know my kids and I stood in line for 6.5 hours just to get in front of the producers. What was it like for Naked and Afraid?
That process is not like that at all. So what it is, there's you go to metalflowersmedia.com, like heavy metal, METAL, flowersmedia.com. And they are the casting group that actually casts for Naked and Afraid. You're going to see the application. They're going to ask you multiple things on there. They're going to want you to attach a video. I highly suggest anyone that wants to go on Naked and Afraid. I don't care if you're Boy Scout of the Year, if you're Captain America, if you were in the military. You know, actually, the number one person to tap is a military man. The number one contestant that makes it on the challenge is a single mother. But if you go on there, go to a primitive survival training. Go do primitive survival training because while you're there, you're going to be able to knock out the videos that you need because they're going to want you to be able to source water 3 ways. They're going to want you to build 3 different shelters. They're going to want you to see how you can make fire 3 different ways. And you got to present all these videos with your application. And then from there, they pick you.
Okay, that's interesting. I had
Mhm.
no idea. So it wasn't this big giant lineup of people. You really had to know stuff. You just didn't get to jump out there and just be Heather.
Yeah, no, you get there's another process that goes on too. I mean, you get interviewed. The interview process is so lengthy, and then they have the experts that actually get into it with you and test you on your abilities. I mean, I mean, just to be able to get talked to, you have to present all the videos, and then after that, I mean, you've got to go through a lengthy process, and they vet you very, very, very well. You know, like they go through it. So they know exactly what your score is. I know my score was higher when I went on. I think I was like a 7.3, which is the highest a girl had in a long time, many years since Brooke White, I think, Matt Wright's wife. They hadn't had a score from a woman coming on that high for my score since she had been on there, and that was actually really worrisome for me because I'd rather start off with a smaller score and build up, and then instead of having a really big score and then falling.
Right. Yeah, there's only one way to go after that.
Yeah.
Then how did you do as far as going? Because I already know, but I want everyone else to know. How did you do in that first time you were on? How far did you make it? And then how did you do in the castaways?
I don't believe in quitting. I've never
Yeah.
yeah. So there's no way I'm gonna quit. There's no quit in me. It actually, what my daughter said to me, Big Little said to me when I left, she looked at me and she told me she loved me. And as I walked off, she said, "Hey," and I turned around. I said, "What?" And she said, "Don't tap out and embarrass the family." So no pressure, no pressure. So I knew my children were making sacrifices for me just as much as I was making sacrifices to be out there. And I was actually missing one of my daughter's birthdays to be out there, which is the first time that had ever happened. And if they were willing to make those sacrifices as well, then I wasn't going to let them down.
Nice. Unreal. Gang, you got to go check out Naked and Afraid. Go check out the 2 seasons that Heather was on there. Check out all her social media platforms. Check out everything she's got going on, gang. Because if you think you're working hard to do stuff, you're going to be blown away at how you're not really doing anything compared to what Heather's doing out there. And I can't wait to see what you're going to do hunting with the girls, doing that helicopter thing. And I sure do hope I get invited to come help you guys with that next year. I'll
I
do
would love
everything
that.
I
I'm gonna
can.
definitely talk to them while I'm there. Another thing too, go over to Hogfin, HAWGFIN.com, Hogfin Performance. That's the team that I'm on. I'm also rock their gear. It's probably some of the softest. I'm not. I know everybody's usually has their gear, but I'm telling you, these are the softest hoodies I've ever felt in my life. Okay, like I was so excited that I'm on this team because their clothing is so amazing. The quality's awesome. But we actually, the Hogfin Reaper, which is the offshore boat that we'll be using for the Big Rock White Marlin Open, Kelly Wagner, blah, 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 Heels and Reels, all that other great jazz. They are installing live stream cameras and we'll all be mic'd up too. So you will actually be able to, because of Starlink, you're going to be able to watch multiple live streams, one directly on the captain, one on the back of the boat, one on us, and we'll all be wearing live mics. So you'll be able to watch the tournament in real time when we're out there for the tournaments.
That is awesome because once we started doing that, Heather, and I know you, I've seen you sneaking around on my live lobster trips. So I know you
Yeah,
see what's going on. People are into it, way into it. Like, cause we tapped onto something no one had ever seen before. We're doing 5.5 hours and you get to see the agony of defeat. You get to see the thrill of the victory. You get to see if they catch them or if they don't, you get to see the interact. So it's going to be fun to watch you guys in the tournaments doing it. That's going to be insane. If you watch these guys, if you haven't seen our we got one tonight.
Jump
And
on
we got
here.
one for the next 5 days in a row. They go off at about 6:15, 6:30 Pacific Standard Time. Live lobster fishing in LA Long Beach Harbor. It's incredible. Last night they were all done, limited out. They were done in 2.5 hours. They couldn't catch any more. They had limits for 5 guys. It's
I
been
love it.
pretty insane fishing. If you haven't seen it yet, I definitely suggest watching it. And then I can't wait to watch you guys doing the live. People are tired of watching this organized sports, this kneel down sports now. It's all about watching us do it, I think, is what people want to see reality now.
Yeah, I mean, on top of that, we're getting groceries. Like these are, I mean, there's football games are great, but you're in the thing. This is just something when you're fishing, you could be on a deck with 3 generations, 4 generations. I mean, you're never, ever, ever going to come up with those kind of memories again, unless it's like Thanksgiving meal. But actually, to be out there together with like 3 generations, like you said, or like all of your siblings, or and with your children and passing on stuff, those are the memories that your kids are going to remember.
Exactly. And also it allows people to understand that you can take your children. You can go do that. You can go do that with your family. You don't have to, maybe you don't like to fish, but maybe your children do, or you'll find out if they don't, but you can watch the show and then you'll find out if your family wants to go do it, which that's never been available. You get to see the edited parts in a 10-15 minute clip on YouTube or something, but you never get to see the whole process, the live, like we're doing right here, where everyone gets to see everything that you do. And that's what's going to be really cool about the tournaments, because it's going to allow everybody into that world where most people have stood on the sidelines and they see you come in and weigh that fish, but they have no idea what happened to get to that point.
Right, right. Or they get to see that one picture you have or that 30-second clip where you're fighting it, but they don't want to see the other ones where you're struggling and you look like your face is melting off or you got Forrest Whitaker eye because you're trying to like you're fighting and you feel like you're gonna have a stroke. You know what I mean? Like so,
Right.
which really happens, you know?
Yep. So this Starlink thing is going to change the world of the outdoor, the fishing, hunting, just getting everybody to see what we really go through when we're out there on the water. So thank you so much for bringing that to everybody, because that's going to be fun to watch. And thanks for all the content you put out all the time. You're an entertainment source
Yeah.
for me. I go watch your stuff all the time. I'm very happy that Amy turned me on to you, because my wife and I started watching you right after we had Bobby and Amy on the show. They're like, you got to get Heather on there. And you were so busy and we had so much, both of us have so much going on. I'm finally got to have you on the show and I super appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Heather, and everybody that watched the show today. Thank you all very, very much. Marley's running around back here. He's bummed that Heather's leaving, but she's got stuff to do. You're basically hanging out with the pro fishermen right now, right? You're over at their house, their studio.
Yeah, I'm at Sealy Outdoors right now. Yeah, so
Right.
I'm at Sealy's actually in the office, but I'm gonna some other stuff. The MLF is here this weekend. Actually, they've got the Tackle Invitational. Brian Lattimore was on this morning because there was a fog delay, and then some other guys are over. I'm supposed to go. I was gonna anyway. The weather's gonna be bad, so we're trying to decide if I'm gonna fish here. If I was gonna go over to Toledo Bend. Then we had a 13 pounder, 13.76 was caught
Woo!
here last
Yeah.
Monday. So, and now I'm like, everybody, because we're going into that pre-spawns a little early, you know, and you're like, come on, fat girl, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go get that little fatso. All right,
Yeah.
everybody. Thank you very much, Heather. Thank you all for watching. Share this with your friends and family. Let everybody in on what's going on. And don't forget to watch us tonight live out on the water. It's probably going to be somewhere between 6:15 and 6:30, depending on what time it gets dark. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. All right. See